The giant silver spacecraft descended slowly through Earth's atmosphere on a warm June morning in 2087. Its surface gleamed in the sunlight as it hovered above the United Nations landing pad in New York. People around the world watched on screens as the first confirmed alien visitors arrived on Earth. Major Alan Shepard stood straight and tall at the front of the Human Welcoming Committee. He adjusted his uniform collar and glanced at Dr. Olivia Martinez, who clutched her translation device nervously. "Remember," Alan whispered, "we represent all of humanity today." Olivia nodded. 6 months of preparing for this meeting had not calmed her nerves. The aliens had sent messages ahead, calling themselves the Galactic Concord, a union of 7 advanced species. They promised peace and knowledge. Still, something about their phrasing troubled her expert linguist's mind. A doorway appeared in the side of the craft, seeming to melt away rather than open. 3 tall figures emerged. The lead alien had bluish skin that reflected light like polished metal. Its head was long and narrow, with 4 eyes spaced evenly around it. It wore what appeared to be ceremonial armor, with symbols etched across the chest. "I am Ambassador Zil Thrax of the Krylaxian Empire, senior representative of the Galactic Concord," the alien said through a device at its throat. Its voice sounded almost musical. "We come offering friendship and advancement to your world." Alan stepped forward. "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, we welcome you. I am Major Alan Shepard, appointed by the United Earth Council to serve as your liaison." Captain Dwayne Johnson stood back, watching carefully. As military liaison, his job was security, not diplomacy. His eyes scanned the alien ship, noting weapon ports that had been mentioned nowhere in the advanced communications. They were subtle, disguised as sensor arrays, but his trained eye recognized them immediately. The formal greetings moved to the UN building, where the aliens presented their case for Earth joining the Galactic Concord. "Your species has achieved faster-than-light travel remarkably quickly," Zylthrax stated. "This qualifies you for membership. We can offer technologies, resources, and protection." While the politicians asked questions about trade and knowledge exchange, Olivia focused on the translator. Something wasn't right. The aliens' language contained undertones their translation devices weren't fully conveying, subtle contexts that suggested they viewed humans as lesser beings. During a break, she pulled Alan aside. "Their language has hierarchical markers embedded in it," she explained quietly. "When they say protection, the contextual meaning is closer to supervision or even containment." Alan frowned. "Are you sure?" "As sure as I can be with an alien language. They speak to us the way we might speak to clever children." Captain Johnson joined them, keeping his voice low. "That ship has enough firepower to level this city." None of it was declared in their specifications. The 3 shared worried glances, but the meeting was resuming. Earth's leaders were already discussing terms of joining the Concord. Later that evening, in a secure room deep beneath the UN building, Alan presented their concerns to the World Security Council. "We recommend caution," he concluded. "While the benefits of joining the galactic community are clear, there are troubling inconsistencies in the aliens' approach." The Council deliberated for hours before reaching a decision. Earth would accept membership in the Galactic Concord. The opportunities were too great to refuse, but would simultaneously establish a monitoring station on Mars, away from alien oversight. "We'll play along," said the Council President, "but we'll keep our eyes open." As the aliens departed the next day with promises to return with a formal treaty, Olivia watched their ship climb into the sky. She couldn't shake the feeling that humanity had just entered a game where they didn't know all the rules. On the edge of the landing pad, Captain Johnson made a quiet call to begin staffing the Mars station immediately. They would need their best people watching and listening. Just in case. Alan looked up at the fading light of the alien ship and wondered if they had made the right choice. Only time would tell. 5 years passed since the aliens first landed on Earth. The Mars monitoring station had grown from a small outpost to a significant base. Lieutenant Kelly Wright sat at her console in the communications center, sorting through intercepted alien transmissions. Most days brought nothing interesting. Trade reports, diplomatic messages, and cultural exchanges that matched what Earth officially received. Today was different. Kelly's eyes widened as her translation program flagged a coded message between two Krylaxian ships. She read it 3 times to be sure. "Commander Peterson needs to see this now," she said, downloading the message to a secure tablet. The Mars base corridors were busy with the morning shift change. Kelly moved quickly past researchers and military personnel until she reached Commander Frank Peterson's office. She knocked twice and entered without waiting. "Lieutenant, this better be important," Peterson said, looking up from his breakfast. "Sir, I intercepted a transmission mentioning Earth and something called a cleansing protocol." She handed him the tablet. "The translation is rough, but they're discussing the final stages of something called the Void Hammer." Peterson's expression darkened as he read. "Get Susan Garcia from Engineering and William Taylor from Strategy. Meeting room 3, 15 minutes." Exactly 15 minutes later, the 4 of them sat around a small table. Engineer Susan Garcia twirled a stylus between her fingers while strategist William Taylor studied the message. "The language is veiled," Taylor said, "but they're clearly discussing a weapon. A big one." Susan nodded. "Based on the power requirements they mention, we're talking about something massive. Capital ship class at minimum." "Can we get visual confirmation?" Peterson asked. Kelly pulled up satellite images on the wall screen. "We've been tracking increased activity at their main shipyard in the Proxima Centauri system. Our long-range telescopes captured these images last week." The screen showed a massive structure under construction. Even incomplete, it dwarfed any known Krylaxian vessel. "That's no diplomatic ship," Susan whispered. "Those are weapon mounts, and a lot of them." William pointed to a section of the image. "Look at the scale markers. This thing is nearly 3 miles long. Building something this size would take about 150 years, Kelly finished. "According to the message fragments I pieced together, they started building this before humans invented the steam engine." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "They've been planning this since before they knew we existed," Peterson said. "Why build something like this unless you expect to use it?" William pulled up more data. "I've been reviewing their cultural archives. The Krylaxians classify species into categories. We're labeled as unpredictable accelerators, species that develop too quickly for their comfort." "And the cleansing protocol?" Peterson asked. "It appears to be their solution for species they consider potentially destabilizing the galactic order." Kelly pulled up the most recent images. "Based on their current construction rate, the Void Hammer will be completed in approximately 6 months. Peterson stood up, his decision made. "I'm contacting Earth Defense Command. We need to prepare a full report with all evidence. Lieutenant Wright, continue monitoring all transmissions. Susan, I want detailed analysis of that ship's capabilities based on what we can see. William, give me strategic options." As the others left, Peterson stared at the massive alien warship on the screen. The Galactic Concord had spent over a century building this one vessel, likely designed specifically to eliminate humanity. They clearly believed one ship would be enough. "Admiral Carter needs to see this immediately," he told his communications officer. "Priority Alpha. Earth needs to prepare." As the message sped toward Earth, Peterson wondered if 6 months would be enough time for humanity to respond to a threat 150 years in the making. What could humans possibly build in half a year that could stand against something the aliens had spent generations perfecting? Time would tell, and there wasn't much of it left. The United Nations Space Administration headquarters buzzed with urgent activity. World leaders filled the main conference room, their faces grim as they watched Admiral Lisa Carter present the evidence from Mars. "This is the Void Hammer," she said, pointing to the massive alien ship on the screen. "The Krylaxians have been building it for over 150 years. Our intelligence suggests it will be ready in 6 months, and its purpose is clear: to eliminate humanity. Gasps and mutters filled the room. The Chinese president leaned forward. How certain are we of this information? Very certain, Admiral Carter replied. We've intercepted multiple communications referring to Earth as a target for cleansing. The Krylaxians see us as a threat because we develop technology too quickly for their comfort. Panic spread through the room. Arguments broke out about proper responses. Some leaders suggested immediate surrender. Others wanted to launch a preemptive strike with Earth's limited fleet of space vessels. Silence. The Secretary General banged her gavel. Fighting among ourselves is exactly what they want. We need solutions, not arguments. Dr. Paul Martinez, head of the Global Technology Institute and husband of Dr. Olivia Martinez from the First Contact Team, stood up. He was not scheduled to speak, but Admiral Carter nodded for him to continue. The aliens have spent 150 years building one ship because their society values perfection and caution, he said. But humans have always excelled at rapid adaptation and production. We rebuilt entire cities after World War II in just years. We transformed our global manufacturing to fight pandemics in months. The room grew quiet as he continued. The Krylaxians expect us to either surrender or respond with our current fleet of 50 small patrol vessels. They don't understand what humans can do when our survival is threatened. Admiral Carter stepped forward again. Dr. Martinez is right. I propose something unprecedented. A complete conversion of Earth's industrial capacity to shipbuilding. She brought up a new image. Blueprints for a smaller, simpler warship. We don't need ships as large or complex as the Void Hammer. We need numbers. Hundreds of ships built simultaneously around the world. The defense minister from India shook his head. Even with our best facilities, building a spacecraft takes years. Not if we change how we think about it, Carter said. I've consulted with the world's top engineers. They believe we can create standardized, modular ship designs that can be mass-produced like automobiles. Dr. Martinez added, we already have the technology and resources. What we need is coordination and will. Arguments continued for hours. Some nations feared the economic impact of converting their industries. Others worried about the technical challenges. Finally, the American president stood up. My country will commit completely to this effort. Our automotive factories will begin retooling tomorrow. China will join this effort, added the Chinese president. Our shipyards are at humanity's disposal. One by one, other nations joined. By evening, a historic agreement was signed. The project would be called Bulwark, and it would be humanity's largest cooperative effort in history. As the meeting ended, Admiral Carter found Dr. Martinez in the hallway. Do you really think we can do this? She asked quietly. Build enough ships in 6 months to face that monster. Martinez smiled slightly. The Krylaxians took generations to build one perfect ship. They can't imagine a different approach. But history shows what humans can do in a crisis. During World War II, America built almost 6,000 ships in 4 years. The entire world working together. 6 months might be more time than we need. Carter nodded, her determination growing. I'll need you to help coordinate the scientific teams. I've already started calling them, Martins replied. As they walked toward the command center to begin planning, a spark of hope began to grow. The aliens had spent 150 years building one vessel of destruction. Now it was time to show them what humanity could build overnight. 2 weeks after the emergency summit, the Detroit Automotive Complex had completely transformed. Where cars once rolled off assembly lines, spacecraft components now took shape. Similar scenes played out in manufacturing centers across the globe. Engineer Jack Peterson walked through the massive factory floor, tablet in hand. Workers swarmed around partially built ship sections. The air smelled of hot metal and determination. How long since you slept? Asked Nicole Davis, the chief scientist for the North American division of Project Bulwark. Her red hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, dark circles visible under her eyes. Jack checked his watch. 30 hours, give or take. But we're making progress. He showed her the tablet. The modular design is working. Each factory builds standardized sections that can be transported to orbit and assembled there. Nicole nodded. I have good news too. My team found a weakness in the alien shield technology. Their energy fields can't adapt quickly to rapidly changing frequencies. We're building weapons that exploit this. They walked past a section where workers installed power systems into what would become a ship's engine room. Have you seen the production numbers? Jack asked. Global or just here? Global. Nicole pulled up the data on her own tablet. Every continent is exceeding targets. Asia's shipyards are working at triple capacity. Europe has converted almost all heavy manufacturing to ship components. Jack smiled for the first time in days. We might actually pull this off. In another part of the complex, Samantha Collins directed a fleet of autonomous vehicles carrying materials between production zones. As the logistics coordinator, she had revolutionized the supply chain to support the massive effort. We need the titanium alloy components at Bay 14 in 30 minutes, she told her assistant, and divert the next shipment of reactor cores to Orbital Platform 3. They're ready for them. Across the country at the Naval War College, retired Admiral Henry Monroe taught battle tactics to a room full of officers from every nation. Despite being in his 70s, he had been called back to help prepare for the coming conflict. The Krylaxians built one massive ship because their tactics revolve around overwhelming force, he explained, pointing to diagrams on the wall screen. But small, agile ships can exploit that. We'll use swarming tactics, hundreds of vessels attacking from multiple vectors. A young officer raised her hand. But sir, their weapons will be much more powerful than ours. Monroe nodded. Yes, but they'll be designed to target large capital ships like their own. Our advantage is numbers and agility. No matter how powerful their weapons, they can only fire in so many directions at once. Meanwhile, in orbit, the first completed ship underwent testing. The vessel was small compared to traditional military spacecraft, just 150 meters long, but its weapon systems were impressive for its size. Dr. Elizabeth Howard monitored the AI combat systems from the Orbital Control Center. Run Simulation Delta 9, she instructed her team. On the main screen, the ship's computer perfectly coordinated defensive and offensive systems against a simulated attack. The neural networks are learning rapidly, she noted with satisfaction. By the time we have multiple ships, they'll work together like a single organism. Back on Earth, in the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Carter received the first truly encouraging news since Project Bulwark began. First prototype completed and fully operational, Mom, reported her aide. 14 days from blueprint to functional vessel. Carter allowed herself a small smile. And production of the next batch. 20 more ships will be completed within 7 days. After that, the rate increases exponentially as more assembly platforms come online. She studied the global production map showing green lights at facilities across the planet. For the first time in human history, every nation worked toward a single goal. Old enemies shared technology and resources. Political differences were set aside. The Krylaxians had spent 150 years building their perfect weapon. Humans had just demonstrated they could build a warship in 2 weeks. And they were just getting started. 3 months into Project Bulwark, the skies above Earth had become a hive of activity. Space elevators, hastily constructed but remarkably effective, carried ship components to orbital assembly platforms. The night sky now glittered not just with stars, but with the lights of human industry. Lieutenant Ryan Murphy floated in the pilot training simulator, his body suspended in the gel-filled chamber that mimicked zero-gravity conditions. Around him, 20 other pilots trained simultaneously. As head of the pilot training program, Ryan had the impossible task of preparing thousands of recruits in months instead of years. Scenario complete, announced the computer. Kill score, 87%. Ryan removed his neural interface helmet and wiped sweat from his forehead. Not good enough, he muttered. You're being too hard on yourself, said his assistant, Linda Gomes. That's better than most veteran pilots would score. We're not fighting other humans, Ryan replied. We're facing an alien warship that took over a century to perfect. Good enough isn't good enough. Across the vast training facility, hundreds of similar pods held pilots in various stages of training. Earth's military forces had combined, with the best pilots from every nation selected for the space fleet. Former rivals now trained side by side, united by a common threat. In high orbit, the assembly of the fleet continued day and night. Dr. Howard's AI systems coordinated the work of thousands of space-suited construction workers and robots. Ship number 98 is complete, reported a technician. Weapon systems online and connected to the fleet eye. Howard nodded, watching the massive orbital display. Nearly 100 ships now formed a defensive screen around Earth. Each day, more joined the formation. The vessels were arranged in a pattern that resembled a spider's web, designed to channel attacking forces into killing zones. "What are we naming this one?" Howard asked. The crew voted for Defiant, the technician replied. "Captain Laura Mitchell takes command tomorrow." Howard smiled. Every ship received a name drawn from Earth's history of defenders, warriors, leaders, and symbols of resistance. The names came from all cultures and eras, a reminder of humanity's long history of overcoming threats. On the Moon, Admiral Carter inspected the newest addition to the fleet. The lunar shipyards had begun producing larger vessels, not as big as the Voidhammer, but still impressive. These would serve as command ships, coordinating the smaller, more agile vessels. "Time to completion for the flagship?" Carter asked the site foreman. 10 days, Admiral. We've solved the power distribution issues. The main cannon works perfectly now." Carter ran her hand along a freshly installed hull plate. "And the total fleet count?" "As of this morning, 112 complete vessels. Production is still accelerating. We'll hit 200 by the end of next week." Carter felt a surge of pride. What had seemed impossible just months ago was now reality. Humanity had transformed itself into a space-faring military power in a fraction of the time anyone thought possible. In the Orbital Command Center, global leaders received their weekly briefing. The main screen showed a real-time view of the growing fleet. 3 months ago, we had 50 patrol ships, said the Chinese Admiral Yang. Today we have over 100 combat vessels with more joining every day. The Russian president leaned forward. "And the weapons? Will they be effective against this alien ship?" Dr. Martinez stepped up. "We've incorporated what we learned about their shield technology. Our ships carry frequency-shifting weapons that should penetrate their defenses." The American president studied the tactical display. "What about the crews? Are they ready?" "Lieutenant Murphy's training program is producing pilots and crews faster than we can build ships," Admiral Carter replied. The simulations show improving performance with each class. As the meeting continued, alerts suddenly flashed across the command screens. All eyes turned to the long-range sensor operator. Multiple jump signatures detected at the edge of the solar system. She reported, her voice tense. "Large vessel emerging. Configuration matches the Voidhammer." The room fell silent. The alien warship, 150 years in the making, had arrived. But instead of finding Earth defenseless, it faced a fleet of over 100 ships, with more joining every day. Humanity's response to the threat was about to be tested. The massive alien warship moved slowly through the outer solar system. The Voidhammer lived up to its name. Nearly 3 miles long, black as space itself, with weapon ports that glowed with purple energy. Long-range cameras showed intricate designs carved into its hull, the work of generations of Krylaxian craftsmen. In the Earth Defense Command Center, Admiral Carter watched the alien ship's approach on the main screen. Around her, officers and leaders from every nation stood in silence. "Time to Jupiter orbit?" she asked. 36 hours at current speed, replied the sensor officer. The American president stepped forward. "Have they made any transmissions?" "Nothing yet, sir." Carter turned to her communications officer. Prepare a channel. Let's see what they have to say before this turns into a shooting war. Minutes later, a familiar face appeared on the main screen. Ambassador Zil Thrax looked much the same as when he had first visited Earth 5 years ago. His metallic blue skin reflected the lights of his command center. "People of Earth," he began, his voice smooth and confident. "You have been judged by the Galactic Concord and found to be a destabilizing influence. Your rapid technological development threatens the balance we have maintained for millennia." Carter kept her expression neutral. "Ambassador, this is Admiral Lisa Carter of Earth Defense Command. We seek peaceful relations with all species. Perhaps we can discuss." "The time for discussion has passed," Zylthrax interrupted. "You will surrender your planet and submit to relocation. Resistance would be futile. The Void Hammer is the most powerful warship ever created. It can reduce your world to ash." Carter pressed a button on her console. The screen split to show the Earth fleet, now numbering over 500 vessels arranged in defensive formations. "We prefer peace, Ambassador, but we are prepared to defend ourselves." For the first time, Zylthrax showed emotion. His 4 eyes widened in what might have been shock. "This is impossible," he said. "Our intelligence indicated you had a few dozen patrol vessels at most. You could not build so many ships in such a short time. You spent 150 years building one perfect warship," Carter replied. "We took a different approach." Zylthrax's face darkened. "These cannot be real combat vessels. They must be decoys or civilian ships with minimal weapons." Dr. Martinez stepped into view beside Carter. "I assure you, Ambassador, each ship is fully armed and combat ready. We analyzed your shield technology and developed countermeasures." A long silence followed as Zylthrax conferred with others off-screen. When he returned, his expression had hardened. "The Krylaxian Empire has never retreated. The Void Hammer will proceed as planned. These hastily built vessels cannot stand against the pinnacle of our engineering." The screen went dark. Carter immediately turned to her tactical officer. "Status of the fleet." "All vessels reporting ready, Admiral. The fleet is at full combat alert. Move to intercepted Jupiter orbit. That's far enough from Earth that any stray shots won't endanger the planet." As officers relayed orders, the President pulled Carter aside. "Can we really win this?" he asked quietly. Carter looked at the tactical display, showing the Void Hammer as a massive red icon moving toward the swarm of blue dots representing Earth's fleet. "Their ship is powerful, but it was designed to fight other large warships or bombard planets. They never imagined facing hundreds of smaller vessels attacking from all directions. And if we lose, then humanity goes down fighting," Carter said firmly. Across the solar system, Earth's fleet moved into position. The smaller, more agile human ships formed into attack groups, each led by a larger command vessel. Dr. Howard's AI combat systems linked all ships together, allowing them to function as a single coordinated force. On the bridge of the ship named Defiant, Captain Laura Mitchell addressed her crew. "The Krylaxians spent generations building what they thought was the perfect weapon. But they forgot something important about humans. We adapt, we improvise, and we refuse to give up." Her crew checked their stations as the massive alien warship grew larger on their screens. The battle for Earth's survival was about to begin. The space near Jupiter glowed with the lights of hundreds of ships. Earth's fleet waited in formation as the Void Hammer approached. The giant alien vessel moved with surprising grace for its size, its purple energy weapons fully charged. In the Earth Defense Command Center, Admiral Carter gave the order. "Begin Operation Hornet's Nest." Throughout the fleet, captains acknowledged the command. The human vessels split into smaller attack groups, each with specific targets on the alien warship. The AI combat systems coordinated their movements, allowing the fleet to act as one. The Void Hammer fired first. A beam of intense purple energy shot from its main cannon, cutting through space and hitting 3 human ships directly. They exploded instantly, fragments spinning away into the darkness. Captain Laura Mitchell gripped her command chair as the Defiant shuddered from the nearby explosions. All ships in Attack Group 5, begin your approach. Remember your training. Her group of 20 ships accelerated toward the alien vessel, weaving in unpredictable patterns. The Void Hammer fired again, but only caught one ship this time. The others continued their rapid approach. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out as human ships closed in from all directions. The Krylaxian warship's weapons were powerful but could not target all areas at once. For every ship destroyed, 10 more pressed the attack. "We're in range," Mitchell's weapons officer reported. "Frequency-shifting cannons ready." "Fire at designated weak point," Mitchell ordered. The Defiant and its sister ships fired in perfect coordination. Their weapons rapidly changed frequencies, confusing the alien shields. Explosions bloomed across one section of the Void Hammer's hull. "Direct hit," shouted the tactical officer. In the Krylaxian command center, Ambassador Zil Thrax watched in disbelief as damage reports flooded in. "How are they penetrating our shields? Recalibrate the defense grid." His engineers worked frantically, but the human attacks came too fast from too many directions. As soon as they adjusted shields in one area, another group of Earth ships would strike elsewhere. "They're using our shield technology against us," a Krylaxian officer reported. "Their weapons change frequency faster than our systems can adapt." Dr. Howard monitored the battle from Earth's orbital command center. Her AI systems tracked every ship and constantly updated attack patterns based on the alien vessel's responses. "Attack Group 7, move to Sector 4, she directed. "Groups 3 and 9, press the advantage at the engine housing." The Void Hammer launched fighter craft, sleek, deadly vessels that moved to intercept the human ships. But Earth had anticipated this. Smaller human interceptors swarmed the alien fighters, engaging them away from the main battle. Lieutenant Ryan Murphy led the interceptor squadron, his training hours paying off as he outmaneuvered a Krylaxian fighter and destroyed it with a short burst of laser fire. "Stay in your pairs," he commanded his pilots. "Don't let them draw you away from your wingmen." The human fighters worked in coordinated teams, while the Krylaxian pilots fought as individuals. Despite their superior technology, the alien fighters began falling to the human tactics. Back at the main battle, the Void Hammer's engine suddenly flared as it tried to reposition. 3 human attack groups converged on this opportunity, firing at the exposed engine section. Explosions rippled along the massive ship's propulsion systems. "We've scored critical hits on their main engines," reported Admiral Carter's tactical officer. "Their maneuverability is severely compromised." On the Defiant, Captain Mitchell saw her chance. "All ships in Attack Group 5, target their main weapon array. Follow my approach vector." Her ship dove toward a massive cannon on the Krylaxian vessel's underside. The alien gunners tried to track them, but the human ships moved too erratically. "Fire all weapons," Mitchell ordered. The combined firepower of 20 human ships struck the cannon array simultaneously. A chain reaction of explosions spread across that section of the alien ship. The great weapon that had destroyed the first 3 human vessels went dark. The battle had raged for only 30 minutes, but the Void Hammer was already badly damaged. Its engines crippled, many of its weapons disabled. The mighty vessel that took 150 years to build was being torn apart by ships constructed in mere months. In Earth Defense Command, Admiral Carter watched the tactical display with cautious hope. They were winning, but at a cost. Nearly 80 human ships had been destroyed. Hundreds of brave crew members had been lost. "The Void Hammer is requesting communication," reported her signals officer. Admiral Carter straightened her uniform before answering the transmission. On the main screen, Ambassador Zil Thrax appeared. His metallic blue skin was now dulled, and smoke filled the background of his command center. "You have damaged the Void Hammer," he said, his voice no longer smooth and confident. "This should not be possible." "Do you wish to continue this battle, Ambassador?" Carter asked. "Or are you ready to discuss terms?" Zilthrax's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. The Krylaxian Empire has never surrendered. There's always a first time, Carter replied. Your ship is crippled. Our fleet still has over 400 operational vessels. We can continue until the Voidhammer is completely destroyed, or we can end this now. After a long pause, Zilthrax spoke. We will cease fire to discuss terms. Throughout the fleet, captains received orders to hold position but maintain combat readiness. Damaged human ships limped away from the battle zone, while repair vessels moved in to assist. On the Defiant, Captain Mitchell's crew cheered at the news. They had suffered damage but remained operational. Mitchell silenced them with a raised hand. Stay alert, she warned. This isn't over until formal terms are agreed. 3 days later, representatives from Earth and the Galactic Concord met aboard a neutral vessel. The damaged Voidhammer hung in space nearby, surrounded by Earth's fleet. Admiral Carter led the human delegation, joined by Dr. Martinez and several world leaders. Zilthrax and commanders from other Concord species sat across from them. The aliens still seemed stunned by the outcome of the battle. We do not understand, said a representative from another alien species. Our intelligence indicated humans could not build a fleet so quickly. The Voidhammer was designed to face vessels built over decades, not months. That was your fundamental mistake, Dr. Martinez explained. You judged us by your standards. The Krylaxians value perfection, building one flawless ship over generations. Humans excel at rapid adaptation and mass production. Your ships are not as advanced as ours, Zilthrax noted. They didn't need to be, Admiral Carter replied. They just needed to be good enough and numerous enough. The negotiations continued for hours. Finally, a new treaty emerged. Earth would remain independent. The Voidhammer would be towed to Mars orbit and studied by human engineers. Most importantly, the Galactic Concord recognized humanity as an equal partner, not a potential threat to be contained. As the alien delegation prepared to leave, ships appeared at the edge of the solar system. Representatives from other Concord species had arrived to investigate the battle's outcome. It seems the galaxy has taken notice of us, the American president remarked. 2 weeks later, Admiral Carter stood on the observation deck of Earth's Orbital Command Center. Repair ships worked on damaged vessels, while new ones continued to join the fleet. Despite the victory, production had not slowed. Earth now had nearly 700 operational warships. Dr. Martinez joined her at the viewport. The technology we've recovered from the Voidhammer will advance our science by decades. And the rest of the galaxy? Carter asked. Already adapting, Martinez said with a smile. 3 trading vessels arrived yesterday. It seems our shipbuilding methods have caused quite a stir. Several species want to establish trade agreements for our production techniques. Carter watched as a newly completed ship moved into formation with the fleet. We built all this because we had to survive. And now it's becoming our greatest asset, Martinez added. The Galactic Concord called us the overnight empire in their recent communications. They still can't believe how quickly we built our fleet. In the years that followed, humanity expanded throughout the solar system and then to nearby stars. Earth's shipyards became famous across the galaxy. The human approach to manufacturing revolutionized galactic transportation and trade. The Voidhammer remained in Mars orbit as a museum and research center, a reminder of the different paths civilizations could take. Visitors from across the galaxy came to see both the alien ship that took generations to build and the human fleet constructed in months. When asked about the battle, Admiral Carter always gave the same answer. The Krylaxians spent 150 years building the perfect warship. We simply didn't have that kind of time. So we did what humans have always done. We adapted, we improvised, and we overcame. And throughout the galaxy, species learned an important lesson. Never underestimate what humans can build overnight.